So I just want to relate to a couple of things that Rabbi Nir mentioned. One is the role of spiritual leadership in reorienting society toward a more sustainable future. We're all aware of the leadership that Pope Francis has taken with the publication of Laudato Si on care for our common home, which represents for the world a real light and providing spiritual instruction on how we can address the crises that we're facing. It happens that today we read about in the front pages of the newspapers the cyclone or hurricane that hit Yemen, which is a very rare event. And we actually have here a professor who will speak in a minute, who's an expert in the science of climate change. And while it's difficult to say whether any weather event is directly attributable to climate change, what's clear is that those type of events are going to be made much more common and severe as a result of human actions today. A number of people died, hundreds of people were injured, tens of thousands of people had to flee their homes from the flash flooding that occurred in the desert as a result of a tropical storm hitting the desert, which almost never happens. And so events like this remind us of the urgency of this work, that it's not something, as Rabbi Nir said, that we can only think about the present and only be concerned about the issues that are happening today, but as spiritual people, we need to be concerned about the future. The Jewish sages say, who is wise? The person who, Ezehu Chacham Havoet Hanulah, the person who can see the outgrowth of their actions, the person who understands what consequences the actions that I take today will have on the future. All sectors of human society, despite the climate crisis, are continuing with business as usual. That's true of philanthropy, it's true of the museum sector, of business and commerce, and it's true of the nonprofit sector and of academia. And so the question is, what is going to cause human society to actually relate to the crisis as we need to in order to address it or to mitigate it so that it doesn't come on like the hurricane that just hit Yemen yesterday. And so the core operating point of our organization, of the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, is, as our mission states, to catalyze a transition to a sustainable human society through the active leadership of faith communities. For thousands of years, faith communities have been at the forefront of providing moral instruction and spiritual direction in order to guide local communities as well as nations, and now possibly all of the earth, in the right direction. How Abraham says, I am dust and ashes. And this relates to the importance of humility, which is one of the areas that religious leaders can come in. Another area is in long-term thinking, as we talked about a few minutes ago, and another area is in moderating consumption. Those are three of the root issues of the climate crisis, because it's not a crisis of the birds and the bees or the trees or the toads. It's actually not about the hurricanes, and it's not about the decreased rainfall. Those are just symptoms of the crisis. The deeper roots, as we just heard about, are how the human being is out of balance. We are spiritual beings living a physical existence, and we are living out of balance in that way, and so therefore to correct the crisis at its root, we need to address the spiritual roots of it. And the only way to do that is through the spiritual leadership of humanity, and the training of that spiritual leadership is concentrated in religious seminaries that train rabbis and priests and imams. So our organization, through the hard work of Rachel and Mike and Andrew and Karen and others, we have published the first ever report on faith and ecology courses in North American seminaries, which has an appendix of seminaries in Rome, and which we've now printed 550 copies, and we're mailing a copy to every seminary dean in North America. And we've also distributed copies to most seminary deans in Rome, of Catholic seminaries there, and we're also distributing to many seminary deans in the Holy Land.